Today's event is part of the Nazir Ali Jerazboy Colloquium series. This is sponsored by the Department of Ethnomusicology here at UCLA and also the Dean of the UCLA Herb Alpert School of Music. And today's event is also sponsored by the Mohinder Bras Sambi Chair in Indian Music at UCLA and the Center for India and South Asian Studies. So I'm going to introduce our guests fairly briefly, because the conversation itself will be more of an introduction. IRFAN Muhammad Khan Sahab is the presiding chief of the Lucknow-Shahjahanpur-Gharana, a lineage of sarod and sitar players traceable to the 19th century royal court of Lucknow. He was born in 1954 in Lucknow. He learned sarod and sitar from his father, Umar Khan, and from his uncle, Ilyas Khan. From 1984 to 1988, and again 2010 to 2013, he lived in Kabul in Afghanistan, where he trained students and concertized extensively. He's also performed and taught in the US, the UK, Italy, Germany, and Japan, and he lives and teaches in Calcutta, his home since early childhood. It's really an honor to have you here today, Khan Sahab. Such an important lineage and just such a wonderful musician. Alas, we won't hear you today. Well, we won't hear you for a proper performance today, but I'll be working on that. Max Katz will be in conversation with Khan Sahab. He is an associate professor in the Department of Music at William and Mary. Since 2007, his research has focused on the music and history of Khan Sahab's lineage, the Lucknow-Shahjahanpur-Gharana. His first book, Lineage of Loss, Counter-Narratives in North Indian Music, explores the oral and archival records of this lineage and establishes a new historical narrative. It's a fantastic book. I do urge you to check it out. His next major project, together with IRFAN Muhammad Khan, documents and analyzes the lineage's unique musical repertoire. So thank you so much, both of you, for being here. We have a growing audience, and over to you. Oh, just to add two things. One is that we'll have some time for questions at the end, and we'll be able to invite you to unmute yourself. You can put them in the chat or raise hand. We can unmute you to ask your question. And thanks also to Kathleen Hood, who has done so much work in putting this all together as well. Thank you very much, Kathleen. Okay, over to you. I will mute my video and my voice to focus.
Thank you so much, Anna. This is a really great opportunity. Adab Arz Khan Sahab. And welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the first time we're doing something like this. Khan Sahab, it's always a pleasure to see you, even on my computer screen. And we've been meeting like this over Zoom for some time now, right? Because of the pandemic and all. But we've also spent a lot of time together. At your house in Calcutta, at my house in Virginia. We've traveled together. My first book is based largely on knowledge and texts that I obtained from you. So we've been having an ongoing conversation for more than a dozen years now, but this is the first time we're having a conversation in public.
True.
Yes. So I'm really looking forward to getting into who you are. I mean, I don't want to just try to introduce you because this whole thing is an introduction to who you are as the carrier of your family's traditions. And that's what this conversation is supposed to be about. Your ancestors and their traditions. So if you don't mind, this is how I'd like to proceed. I have a video from one of our very first meetings in 2009. You were living in Assam, in the far east of India, far northeast of India, and I was researching the musical history of Lucknow, where you were born. It is a major city in North India, far from Assam, but I traveled to Assam to meet you because your cousin, you were there working as a music professor. You were heading the Department of Music, I believe, in that school in Assam. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So your cousin Idris had said, look, and he was living in Lucknow at that time. He said, if you want to know about my family, you have to go talk to my cousin, Irfan Bhai. And I said, okay, let me go meet this mysterious Khan Sahab in Assam. I came there, and you immediately started revealing your knowledge to me. And I understood immediately why Idris had sent me to you. So the video that I want to show is from like the first or second day of our meeting. It's fairly short. It's about 2 minutes. But it contains a lot of music and ideas. You mention several places, several names, you play several compositions, and I thought we could watch that short video, and then for the rest of this time together, we could just talk about the significance of all the things that you mentioned there. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, sure.
Chalain? Okay, so I'm gonna play the video.
Various compositions in Bhairavi by different ustads at different time. I'll start with a composition of Shafat Khan sahab. This is of course from oral tradition, from what I have heard from father. This is a gat from Shahjahanpur, and it was Shafat Khan sahab. And this one is Batat Khan sahab. Now this is an old. This is from Kalpi. I mean Abdul Ghani Khan sahab. This is a Judas gat from my grandfather.
क्या बात है, क्या बात.
There's another old one. This is a very common one.
Okay, so Khan Sahab, you start off by saying you're going to play various compositions, or guts, the name for instrumental composition, in Bhairavi by different ustads at different times. So for those in the audience, Bhairavi is of course a raga, of which you know many dozens. And part of our work together is actually recording all of these compositions that you know in these dozens of ragas, which totals some 300 compositions that we've already cataloged. But for this first meeting, you said, I'm going to play guts in Bhairavi. So I want to ask you why you chose Bhairavi, and does it have something to do with Lucknow? And if it has something to do with Lucknow, what is Lucknow? Why is that an important place in the story of your family's music?
There are one or two reasons I started with Bhairavi. Number one, when we were recording this, it was early morning, immediately after breakfast. And so I was in the mood for a morning rag. And since I have a lot of compositions in Bhairavi, you have just played 4 of them, and I know you have recorded few more.
Yeah, we have about 7, I think.
Yes. So I wanted to showcase the different patterns, how compositions were made by different people. And of course, Lucknow has a very significant role to play when it comes to Bhairavi. When Shah was being deposed and he was being sent to Mathura. He composed a thumri, Babul Gora Naya Thuto Jai. And that sort of has just stayed with us. Lucknow, Bharvi, and plus one of the guts which I played, which I said is a very common one. It was a composition of Ghulam Raza, who first composed the Raza Khani guts. And he used to compose them on thumris. And most of the time it was the thumris of Bajali Shah or Sanat Piya or Qadar Piya or Lalan Piya. So I thought it would be appropriate if I start with that.
So Khan Sahib, you mentioned that Wajid Ali Shah, the last king of Lucknow, that his court in Lucknow was important site for music, and it's related to your family story.
Yes. You see, after 1857, the first war of independence, according to Indians, and the Sepoy mutiny and the rebellion, according to the Britishers, the Mughal court was all over. It has disintegrated. And all the musicians, poets, and anyone who was looking for a living, they migrated to different states. And Lucknow happened to be a happening place during that time. And Wajid Ali Shah was a great connoisseur of music. And so a lot of musicians came there. And some went to Rampur, some went to Farrukhabad, and Jaipur, Alwar, different states. So my family, my ancestors, they were, since they were living in the proximity of Lucknow. One was in Shahjahanpur. The other family was in Bagrasi, just a small kasbah in Bulandshahr. And so they came there, and Niamtullah Khan Sahib was the name of the gentleman. He came and he got employment in Wajid Ali Shah's court as a court musician and his ustad.
Okay, fantastic. So Lucknow, and we're going to talk about Lucknow a little more, is a very important site in your family's history. But the first gut that you play, you say actually this gut is from Shahjahanpur.
Yes.
Right? And you say that it's composed by Shafayat Khan. So first of all, why is Shahjahanpur an important place in your family's musical history? And then I'll ask you about Shafayat Khan in particular.
Okay. So when my ancestors came down from Afghanistan, as you know, we are Yusufzai Bangash. So there were two cousins, one hailed from Jalalabad and another from Ghazni. So they came, and one of them was a horse trader. So he used to come to India to trade horses. The other one had a commission in the cavalry. He was a Risaledar. And they naturally settled in places where the Afghans held sway. So this whole area known as Rohilkhand was known as Rohilkhand. Shahjahanpur, Bulandshahr, Rampur, and Meerut, Bareilly, all this area was known as Bulandshahr. So they naturally settled there because the Pathans there was in strength there. So one of my ancestors from paternal side, he settled in Shahjahanpur, and Shafayat Khan Sahib belonged to that lineage.
Okay, so we're talking about the one side of your family now that is associated with Shahjahanpur, and which has, so your family's a little complicated because there are a couple of different lineages that join to form the Lucknow-Shahjahanpur-Gharana. But this particular side of it traces from your ancestor Inayat Ali Khan. Is that right? And his son was Shafayat Khan.
That's right.
So this becomes then your paternal lineage. Down at the bottom of the chart, you're in the middle, the second son of Umar Khan, who was the first son of Sakhawat Khan, who was the son of Shafayat Khan.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So I want to ask you about this particular gut that you played, this particular composition, because you know, we've been working on this project that I mentioned, recording all of the guts that you know, transcribing them, documenting which side of the family, where you learned it from, what makes it special. This particular gut, what makes it? There's so many of them from Shahjahanpur. What makes these Shahjahanpur guts identifiable? What makes them special?
You see, the Shahjahanpur guts were long. They're in 2 or 3 cycles, sometimes even 4 cycles of a avartan or a take up the beat cycle, and they were referred to as kulfidar guts because the astai and antra they were merged together. And kulfi, as you know, is like an Indian ice cream, and the mold they use, so it sort of telescopes into it. So that's why they used to call it kulfidar guts. And whereas the Lucknow side, their guts were short, and one of the speciality of this Shahjahanpur guts, they were long, they were astai and antra were together. And the rhythmic pattern was slightly complicated.
I wanted to ask you about, please.
Yeah, they never, they tried to hide the starting point, the sum. They enjoyed confusing the tabla player.
So let me ask you,
Yeah.
So let me ask you about this. I want to listen to this gut again, and then I just want to talk about this notation, which is how we've written down, this is just the right-hand pattern. Every single gut that you know comes with the specific knowledge of what the right hand is doing at all times, whether it's an in-stroke or an outstroke, and exactly what part of the beat each in-stroke and outstroke is on. So in sarod, the da is an outstroke with the plectrum, the ra is an upward stroke, and the dira is a fast da ra. So let's just listen to this one again. It starts on beat 9, right? So this is of a 16-beat rhythm cycle. Almost all the guts from all the sides of your family are in this 16-beat rhythm cycle called teen tal. So I've made this into 4 groups of 4 beats here. This one starts on beat 9. So if we were to recite just the bowls or the right hand here, this one goes da dida da 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 dida da 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 dida da 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 ra da dida da 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 dida da 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 dida da 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 da. But it's very difficult to know where the first beat is there.
Yes.
So you said that had something to do with confusing the tabla players.
Not always. You see, when they were playing, when they were playing the bilampat, the slow compositions, they could judge whether the tabla player who's accompanying him is a smart alec or just a simple fellow. So if he was trying to be smart, then they will play a complicated gut like this, and they never told him where the sum was, and he would be lost. You have seen it happen with me also when I was there.
I've seen it happen. Tabla players. So one thing we should mention is, so far I've shown a video and I've played recordings of you playing just purely solo sarod, but all of these guts are meant to be played with the accompaniment of the tabla drums.
Exactly.
So that the right-hand pattern and the rhythmic patterns that you're playing, they fit over another rhythmic pattern, which is the one that the tabla player has to play.
Yes.
And the tabla player has to recognize where yours starts so that he can know where his starts, right? Okay, so we're gonna, as we go on, we're gonna have other recordings that actually do feature the tabla. But I want to ask you about the next gut that you played in the video. So far we've only talked about the first gut. The next gut that you played, you said this is from Basit Khan. And Basit Khan was a musician, a court musician for Wajid Ali Shah. of Lucknow. So who was Basit Khan besides a court musician for Wajd Ali Shah in the royal court of Lucknow, and why is he important to the music of your family?
He was the great grandson of Mia Tansen, the legendary musician in King Akbar's court. And when my ancestor Ni'amatullah Khan Sahab wanted to learn Indian classical music, he went to Basit Khan Sahab and asked him to teach him. And Basit Khan Sahab told him that, well, you can't learn Indian classical music on a rabab. So since it has only 1.5 octave, so you better playing some Indian instrument like sitar or subahar or whatever was available at that time. But this fellow was a little adamant, and he said, no, I'm used to playing the instrument like this, and I want to play something like this on a similar instrument. So he came up with the idea of inventing the sarod. And of course, with a slight help from Basit Khan Sahab. And he changed the fingerboard, which was a wooden fingerboard in the rabab, put an iron fingerboard, changed the gut strings to iron and brass strings, and did away with the frets, because the Afghani rabab had frets also. Earlier it used to be guts, now it's nylon. So he did away with that, all that, and then he went back to Basit Khan Sahab and said, look, now I have done this and I can play all the 3 octaves, and now you better teach me. And Basit Khan Sahab was very impressed, and he said, okay. And that's how it all started.
Okay, wonderful. So you're speaking about now this other side of your family, not the one associated with Shahjahanpur, but this other place, Bulandshahr, in which there's a particular qasba called Bagrasi, where your family was located, right? And your ancestor Ni'amatullah Khan is the one who came down and settled in that place. So this is the other side of your family. This is the side, and the instrument that he brought with him, I'm going to get to the family tree in a second, was something like this, right? The Afghani rabab.
This is the one, yes.
This is the Afghani rabab. So as you pointed out, wooden fingerboard, strings made of gut, right? Tied frets that you can see tied here. And through the transformation that you described, which is also documented in Karamatullah Khan's book, Ni'amatullah Khan made the changes which result in today the modern sarod. It went through subsequent changes before it became this one I'm picturing here, but you can see the main transformation, right? You see the metal plate instead of the wooden fingerboard, the metal strings instead of the gut strings, and of course the frets. The frets are gone. So this is a very significant contribution to Indian musical history of this ancestor of yours, Ni'amatullah Khan.
And it is well documented, not only by Karamtullah Khan Sahab, who wrote his book Isare Karamat Ni'amat, which was published in the first publication was from Allahabad, Janki Press, in the 1908, and the reprint was in Nawal Kishore Press in Lucknow in 1925. So he has written about it, and Raja Surendra Mohan Tagore has written about it, and others have also written about it. Bahadur Khan Sahab, the sarod, the cousin of Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahab, he also, in a conversation, he used to come to our house, and one day I happened to ask him about sarod. He said, why are you asking me? Your ancestors did it. Ni'amatullah Khan Sahab did it. So, but let me tell you, the family beside my family has also contributed. The sarod which you see today, there are 2 or 3 different types of sarod which are in vogue now. Alauddin Khan Sahab also made significant changes. He flattened the sarod, the drum was rounded, and he added more strings, and to the main strings also, and to the sympathetic strings also. And later on, Amjad Ali Khan Sahab also changed the pattern of the drum, made it larger, and he has also made significant contribution. But the original sarod, the inventor, was Ni'matullah Khan.
And so this is your other half of your family, right? This is the lineage that comes from Ni'matullah Khan. So the reason that you're not in this chart is because these two charts actually join, right? Sakhawat Khan Sahab, your paternal grandfather, marries the daughter of Kaukab, Asadullah Khan Kaukab, who was the son of Ni'matullah Khan, right? So this is, in a way, is related to your family, but it's not your direct paternal line, but it is the line that comes from Ni'matullah Khan. Ni'matullah Khan's two sons, Karamatullah Khan and Asadullah Khan, who is known as Kaukab, his takhalus or his pen name was Kaukab, were exceedingly famous sarod players in their own day, as well as music teachers and authors, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But if I'm not mistaken, the gut that you played, that you said this is from Basat Khan, that very gut was also recorded by Kaukab.
Yes.
So I have that here. Should we listen to a little bit of that so we can hear the more than 100-year-old recording of your ancestor Kaukab playing the same gut? G?
Yeah, the first recording was in 1906, and then there were more reprints. They were reprinted in 1912 and then 1916 after he passed away in 1915.
So the one I have here must be the first reprint from 1912.
Yes.
I have the date 1912 here. Okay, so let's listen to just a bit of this. We could listen to the whole thing, but I believe this is actually available on your YouTube page. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I put.
That's the Lucknow-Shahjahanpur-Gharana archive, right? And many of your family's recordings are there on YouTube now. Okay, so I wanted to ask you something about this because looking at this label, it's clear that he's playing Rag Bhairavi, as you mentioned, but Kaukab was famous as a sarod player. It says here in 3 different languages, in Hindi and Urdu and in English, that this is the banjo. So I thought that Kaukab Khan was a sarod player.
Yes, he was, but in 1900, he was sent to Paris to attend the World Fair. Was held there, and he was sent by Pandit Motilal Nehru, Jawaharlal Nehru, our first Prime Minister's father, along, and Kaukab Khan Sahab and Karamullah Khan Sahab, they both went there, and in transit his sarod broke. So when he reached Paris, he was at a loss of what to do. So he went to the market, and naturally, there was no one who could fix the sarod. They had never seen one, leave alone fixing one. So he bought a banjo, shaved off the frets, and played it like a sarod. And when he came back, the instrument became so popular that he had to play it in most of the concerts, and then he recorded it also. He made 6 recordings, 3 records, 2 on each side. 6 records are available, and there was another twist to it. I mean, he didn't want to record sarod because it was in those days people thought, oh, why should we record, and this record, my music will be played, my sarod will be played in some hotel or bar or pawn shop or whatever. So they were loath to record anything. But people forced him, his well-wishers, and Surendranath Tagore also insisted that no, Prasad, you must record something for posterity. So he did it, and he made a few recordings. you will also notice that the name of the tabla player is also there.
Huh.
And it was the first time a name of a tabla player has been mentioned on a record.
Very
And
interesting.
Kawkab Khan Sahab insisted that since he is also a musician and he is my accompanist, his name should also be there on the record. So the recording company had to put it. And Abani Babu was the student of Ata Hussain, who was a famous tabla player from Murshidabad. And incidentally, I will like tell you that Shafayat Khan Saab's father, Inayat Khan, he was the first Indian musician who went to England at Queen Victoria's Jubilee celebration. And Ata Hussain was the tabla player who went with him.
Wow.
And there, the people were so amazed by his playing, the fast guts and everything. They thought there's some mechanism inside the instrument. And poor fellow had to unscrew the fingerboard and show them that there's nothing, it's all hollow inside. So,
they thought there was some kind of machine in there that was causing it to play so fast.
yeah,
Wow.
that's right.
So I just wanted to ask you one more thing about the banjo, because as I understand, once Kawkab started performing on the banjo, he also started teaching his students banjo. And in fact, the banjo then became an available instrument.
Yes, it was available in a shop called Dwarkins in Calcutta, which was the shop owned by the grandfather of Pandit Gyan Prakash Ghosh. So his name was Dwarka Prakash Ghosh, and he started the shop, and they were selling this, and it was called Coco Patent Banjo. He patented it. So it was Coco Patent Banjo, and this Dwarkins shop, they were selling also pedal operated, foot operated harmoniums also.
Very interesting. But this playing of the banjo, this stayed in your family also, right? This is your cousin Mukhtar Ahmed playing playing that banjo.
That's right.
So until fairly recently, and I believe you actually practiced on the banjo as well, is that right?
For a few months, but I liked it and I gave it up.
Okay, let's talk about Kawkab just a little bit more, because he's a fascinating character. He was a court musician, but then he wound up teaching at a music school in Calcutta for the last few years of his life, where he authored 2 books.
Yes, one of them, the one in Bengali, which came in, I didn't know about it, and luckily we found it in the library, and now we have a photocopy of it. And it's a printed book. And unfortunately, he couldn't proofread it. So there are some errors, but can't be heard. And the other one, which is in Urdu, it's not only in Urdu, it has several languages in there. There's Farsi, there is Urdu, there is English, there's Sanskrit. So he was a polyglot, I mean, and he knew 7 languages, according to my father.
It's unusual that a professional musician would also be such a prolific scholar, and maybe even more unusual, his brother was also a scholar. Right? This is the cover page from his brother's book.
That's right. Israr Karamat and Nagmat and Niyamat.
That you had mentioned.
Earlier, it runs in the family. You see, Niyamatullah Khan Sahab started with this Nagmat and Niyamat, and then Karamullah Khan completed it. Then his other brother, Kawkab Khan Sahab, he wrote 2 books. My grandfather, Sakawat Khan, he has a journal. My uncle has a, he was in process of doing it. My grandfather also penned a book. He had written everything, and he gave it to one of his students to go and give it to the publishers. And this, went there and put his own name, author. So that book is also available, but it was written by my grandfather.
Wow.
And I'm in the process of writing a book, and and I've also helped one or two scholars, whatever I know.
Indeed, the scholarly world is indebted to you and your family for their interest in scholarship and in spreading their knowledge through texts. Okay, I want to go to the next gut that you played. The next gut you played, you said this is from Kalpi. So this is yet a fourth important place besides Lucknow, besides Shahjahanpur, besides Bulandshahr, and you say it's composed by Abdul Ghani Khan. So who was Abdul Ghani Khan, and what is his importance to your family and its musical traditions?
Abdul Ghani Khan Sahab came from Kalpi. Kalpi is a town in UP, and he was a court musician of a small state called Khajurgaon. His father was a famous musician who used to compose. His father's name was Azam Khan, who used to compose dhupas and khayals and thumbis under the pen name of Gurawat Pia. And he used to come to Lucknow, and he was friends with my grandfather. And my grandfather asked him to teach my uncle, Jas Khan Sahab. And since he was primarily the teacher of Yusuf Ali Khan Sahab, who was known as Yusuf Ustad, who had a shop, instrument shop in Lucknow. Later on, when my grandfather was going abroad on a tour, so he asked Yusuf Ali Khan Sahab to teach Ilyas Khan Sahab while he was away. But Ilyas Khan Sahab, in those days, Ilyas Khan Sahab used to play sarod. But so fascinated by sitar of Yusuf Ali Khan Sahab, he gave up sarod and started playing sitar.
Wow. So we're talking about, sorry.
That's how the Kalpi compositions came into our family. But before that also, one of the court musicians in Nepal, Taj Khan, he was also from Kalpi. And Taj Khan Sahab's daughter was married to Papa Khan Sahab.
So that's another Kalpi connection. Very interesting. These particular guts that come through Yusuf Ali Khan, from Abdul Ghani Khan to Ilyas Khan, and thus to you, they come through this character, Yusuf Ali Khan, who was not part of your family, but he was a famous sitar player of Lucknow. And as you said, he was a sitar maker. He had his own instrument shop. He won the first award for sitar and sarod that was given out by the Sangeet Natak Academy, with the first award for a sitarist within that category in 1958. And he was a good friend of your grandfather, as you pointed out. So this picture has your grandfather sitting there with the blanket next to Yusuf Ali Khan, and behind them is your uncle, Ilyas Khan.
Yes. And the small boy is also, the little kid is also one of my uncles. He was also a sitar. He used to play sitar, but he died young. His name is Khan.
His name was?
Zahid.
Zahid. Yeah. Amazing that you have this kind of memory of these figures, because this wasn't your photo. I obtained this photo from somewhere else and showed it to you, and you could name even the little kid in it.
Yeah.
So he was a good friend of your father. Your grandfather. He trained your uncle Ilyas Khan, and thus a lot of material came to you from this Kalpi tradition. However, I think you learned this gut, you told me, not first from Ilyas Khan. Am I allowed to say this?
Yes.
From your sister Najma.
Yes.
So this is a photo of Najma and Idris Khan, the son of Ilyas Khan, and your father. Maybe must be in the 1960s.
Yeah, late 60s, I think.
So Najma lives in your house, and when I'm there and I see her, I always call her Ustani. I think she's tickled by that, but I call her Ustani because she's older than you, so she knew some of the old masters, Yusuf Ali Khan, Sakhawat Khan Sahab, spent more time with them. But I think most people will be surprised. They'll say within a Muslim Khandan, it's unusual that a daughter should have received training. So what can you help us understand that?
We were always progressive.
Hmm.
As you have seen, we were scholars, my ancestors,
Hmm.
they were educated people.
Hmm.
They were the typical skull cap wearing, and all those. Let's not go into that, but they were progressive people.
Hmm.
Not my sister, but I try to teach my daughters also. You know,
Hmm.
my elder daughter, Simone, she used to play sitar, and I've taught her sitar. My younger daughter, Anka, she has learned sarod, and not too much, but I started. But unfortunately, they didn't carry on, and they didn't like it, and they gave it up. So that's one sore point with me, and I heartbroken man, because this is going to end this 400 years of history.
Well,
And
we're doing the best we can to do all the documentation now, so that anyone who
my hopes are with all my students, you, Matthias, Marcus, Sataki, and Arnab, and the others who are learning here in Calcutta. I have great hopes with all of you. At least the tradition will carry on. This will not be lost.
Well, let's carry on while we can. I want to look at the gut that you played from Kalpi, right? This is the right hand pattern again, and so let's just listen again to your recording of this gut. Okay, I want to ask you in particular about this part, da 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 da, the melody that accompanies that part, just the last eight matras, 8 beats of the gut. But I want to come back to it because the very next gut you played, you said, this is a Jorda's gut of my grandfather, right? Your grandfather was Sakhawat Hussain Khan. But what is a Jorda's gut or a Jorde ki gut? What is that?
It's like a twin sister. So like a twin sister or twin brother, just like a twin. So, but it has the same pattern with slight changes. The first one uses both the rikabs in the upper or in the tar saptak, and the second gut uses both the madhyams.
Uses both the madhyams. Okay, let's listen to this one. This is your notation of this gut. So let's listen to this one again, and then I want to try to point out what that part is that seems to reference the previous gut. Okay, so am I right that it's this bit right here that is the evidence that Sakhawat Khan was creating a Jorde-ki gut in reference to Abdul Ghani Khan's gut? So can I just, is it ijazat hai, so I'll just grab the sitar for a second.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not used to trying to play sitar sitting in an office chair, but I want to show that this bit in the gut right here that I've highlighted in pink is unusual because it's showing, I'm in a different sword than you, but that's, in Western music, we call that those half steps, 3 half steps. That's very unusual to have 3 consecutive half steps in any raga or in any composition, right? So this one has it there. Bhairavi doesn't usually do that, right? You don't normally get that sharp 4 note. But is it right that that is also referenced here, where he plays 3 half steps in a different part of the scale? Here. Is it that bit right there? In notation, it's see if I can get it in the camera here. I don't have enough frets to show it, but ga 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 re 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 sa sa, again 3 half steps. So that's the bit, if I'm not mistaken, that you're saying Sakhawat Khan Sahib recognized, heard, must have intrigued him in Abdul Ghani Khan's gut, then composed his own gut with another usage of a 3 half step thing.
That's right.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. Okay. Let's talk about your grandfather a little bit, and then I want to ask you about your own experiences learning music from your father and from your grandfather. Your grandfather was one of the early professors at the Bhatkhande College. He taught sitar and sarod. He's here with us sitar, teaching the sitar students in the 3rd year of the existence of one of the most significant music colleges in India. But here he is also in the front row here with the sarod on a German postcard. So can you help us understand how he is on a German postcard playing, sitting with the sarod and with all these musicians?
He went on a tour in 1934, and he was on a tour till 1939. He was away for about 5 years, and it was with a ballet. The dancer, his name was Madame Meneka. Actually, her name was Laila Sukhe. Earlier, it was Laila Ray. When she married one of the major in the army, he was a doctor, army doctor. So when she married him, so she became Laila Sukhe. And but her stage name was Meneka. And when they went there, it was called Meneka's Hindu Ballet. So he was the music director, and people you see here are some of the musicians. The other gentleman on the sarod is his student. His name was Kamal, and there's on the clarinet that's Mahmood Hussain. And then there was a vocalist whose name was Ambika Mazumdar. He stayed back, and he went away to Italy, and sadly he died in one of the bombings. So he died in the war. But came back and he performed at the Berlin Olympics also. In those days, they used to have this cultural competitions and things like that, and he was given 2 medals.
I wanted to ask you about this. So this is from the Berlin Olympics of 1936, which Americans remember for a different reason, right? Because Adolf Hitler was presiding there, and there was a famous American athlete, Jesse Owens, who won 4 gold medals, thereby thwarting Hitler's ideas about the superiority of the Aryan race. But you remember it, and your family remembers it, that your grandfather was performing there and actually received this medal. And I guess there was another medal as well. That, but
this one was all the participants, and the other one was a gold medal, which was given to. But he must have sold it, or I don't know what happened to it. I never saw it. But this, my grandmother had it, and I coaxed her to part with it, and I brought it back to Calcutta.
So your father Umar Khan learned sarod from your grandfather Sakhawat Khan, and you learned sarod first of all from your father Umar Khan. This is a photograph from I think the mid or the late 60s.
Yes, it was in Lucknow at the residence of Suchitra Kriplani. She was the chief minister of UP in those days. You can see my father playing the sarod and Karama on tabla, and the gentleman with the bat on the left is Ilyas Khan Sahab, and the other one is Thirakwa Khan Sahab, and my elder brother is on the tanpura, and the lady sitting behind the sarod is Begum Jabbar, the Nawabzadi of Jalpaiguri.
I never recognized Shahid in this picture before, your elder brother playing tanpura. Wow. Wow. So you learned from your father, growing up in Calcutta. But then at some
Yes.
point, you also learned from your uncle, Ilyas Khan, and this is where you imbibed so much of that Kalpi material. So, but Lucknow and Calcutta are far apart. So how is it that you learned from both of them?
You see, after, when I was in school, when I finished my school and I was in my college, my father found out that I was not practicing enough. So he wrote a letter and gave it to me and said, go to Lucknow and give it to Ilyas. And I carried that letter, and in that letter, it was written that I'm sending him, you put him through the paces and don't be soft with him. And I carried that letter. And then I started learning from my uncle, and I stayed with him for 7 years. And I finished my college there. I finished my school in Calcutta, and my uncle insisted, okay, you learn, but you finish college also. Education has always been a big thing in our family. So there's nothing doing, you finish your education. And also, he insisted that I give the exams for Bhatkande. So I gave the exam for Bishara, and then from Allahabad, I did the Praveen.
When you left Lucknow after those many years learning from Ilyas Khan, you went to Kabul, Afghanistan.
That's right.
So how did you wind up going to Kabul, and what were you doing there?
There was an advertisement in the paper that the Indian government had a cultural center there in Kabul, and they wanted someone to go and teach there Indian music, instrumental music. So I applied, much against my uncle's wishes. They didn't want me to work. He said, don't do any sort of job. It will kill you, the musician. Look at me. I joined the college, and my career as a performing musician was over. But then I was young and I wanted to go abroad, and more than that, it was Afghanistan. I wanted to see my ancestral place. So I went there, and I was there for around about almost 4 years, from 84 to 88.
While you were there, you taught many students, and I believe you concertized a lot, and you even, some of those concerts were broadcast on television. So I have a little bit of video from one of those broadcasts. Can we watch a little bit of that?
Why not?
So we could watch much more of this, and I'm sorry, it seems like the audio is only coming in on one side of this recording. This is also on YouTube. I believe this is on my YouTube page, but it's there for anyone who wants to find it. In 2011, you went back to Kabul, right? How did you? Sorry, yeah, was it not 2011?
2010.
Oh, 2010. Sorry, I'll correct that. You went back to Kabul. and stayed for some more years. You came back and forth during that time because I kept meeting you, but you were there mostly during that time. So what were you doing during that time?
There's an institution there called Afghanistan National Institute of Music, ANIM for short, and Dr. Samas is heading that institution. Now, of course, it is in tatters, and because of political situation there, these two girls that you see, one of them is Nagin, who used to learn sarod, and then later on she became the conductor of the ladies, all girls orchestra.
Wow.
It's called Zora. And then the other girl is Gulalai, she used to play sitar. So I was teaching there. It's very sad. I feel very sad when I see the what's happening to Afghanistan. Such a lovely place, lovely people. Yeah.
You've kept in touch with some of your students over the years.
Yes. One of them is now in Australia. He's a big sitar player there, Khalil Baz. And another one is still in Afghanistan. His name is Ehsan. So and they are doing good work. And there are others also. One of them was shot by the Taliban in the 90s. When they were there. So he was a very good sitar player. His name was Daud. So I have these girls were playing very good, but I don't know what are they doing now. I've lost contact.
Well, I hope you can get in touch and be in touch with as many of your Afghani students as you can, because I know you brought a lot of knowledge to them and gave them opportunities that connect them to your family's traditions, so that those seeds that you've planted are continue to spread the knowledge of your family.
Thank you so much.
So Khan Saab, I think that we should wrap up so that we can open up the floor to audience questions. I'm sure there are going to be plenty of questions for you, but I just want to say, from my part, thank you, Khan Saab, for for doing this, and for all the lovely experiences that we've had together over the past dozen or more years. It's been the experience of a lifetime for me.
Before we wind up, do you have the video of my grandfather?
Shall I show that?
Yes, please. People should know that how he played in those days. Okay,
so let's wind up with this film, which was made in Bombay, I believe,
yes.
of your grandfather. Was it made in 1936, or it was?
It was earlier. It was the first print was in 34. There were subsequent print in 36, 37, 38 till 38. They were reprinting it and putting it on, and they were used to play before the main cinema, main film, as a newsreel, documentary, and carried on till 38.
Okay, let's watch a little bit of this. Kansab, this video is also, I believe, available on your YouTube site. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, so I'm sorry I had to cut it off in the interest of time for questions, but yeah, thank you very much for reminding me of that. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing, and Anna, if you want to come back in and help facilitate the questions, that would be fantastic.
Thank you so much. I was just, you were very dutifully trying to finish on time, but that video of your grandfather concert, my God, that was just electric. Anyway, I will definitely, I'm sure we will all be looking that all up and sort of watching it on repeat. Thank you so much. That was just a complete joy. You know, this conversation, this whole, you know, opening up Kansab's whole family history and the repertoire, and it can be extremely illuminating. And I've just never failed to be floored by your encyclopedic knowledge, Kansab. It's really very enviable. And Max, just simply wonderful work. I mean, so yeah, I will. I want to turn it over to people. I'm sure there's tons of questions. There's things I'd like to ask. But I first want to turn it over to our audience, our lovely audience. So people can. The best thing is to put something in chat because I can't see everybody all on one page. I can say, oh, actually, you know, if you raise your hand, it does come up. So I've got Gabriel Deibel. I'm going to unmute you. Wait a minute, or maybe Kathleen has done so. Kathleen, have you? I can't find him now. Can you? I don't know, he went. Okay, well, somebody else, please raise your hand. Oh yeah, okay, I found you again. So I'm asking you to unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much, Kansab. This is really quite a pleasure and a privilege to hear you speak and to discuss this music. I recently just graduated from UCLA and I studied a bit of Hindustani classical music at the school with the ethnomusicology department. And something I talked to about with my professor about it, he was kind of getting us to think about was the nature of these compositions and the sort of the spirituality that we engage with when we're trying to play these things, kind of the essence of these compositions that we're trying to kind of scratch at. And I was just wondering, when you are playing, do you feel a spiritual nature to this music, to this kind of like, I guess, to your sort of style?
It doesn't happen initially. Once you are into it deep, and when you're doing alap, then it happens. It has happened to me also. Without the spiritual aspect, you can't have Indian classical music. There has to be some semblance of spirituality in it. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you. We have a question from Anne Rasmussen, and I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Great. Can I?
Yes.
Oh, I can't. I'm not allowed to do my video. Okay.
Can I ask you to? I don't know if I can do that. Perhaps Kathleen can do that.
All right.
It'd be nice if we could see
We
you.
can hear you, Anne.
Okay. No, I just wanted to say I am not on the inside of Hindustani music, but I'm very close to it because of all of my colleagues here, including Nazir, with whom I studied. But it is so nice to see you, Kansab, and you were in my class this morning, and I told students, we watched some of your videos. Max was in our class yesterday, and I asked them to watch this presentation today or the rebroadcast. So I just want to know that your impact here at William and Mary in Virginia is still resounding, and we anticipate your next visit very much, and we welcome you back as soon as you can possibly make it. And I guess it's not a very musical question, so I think you should probably take some other questions, but we would be so interested to know, I guess, the great thing about the pandemic is that you can sit home and practice all the time, right? You never have to get on an airplane and go anywhere. But I say that in jest because there's so many things that we can't do as musicians. But if you have a chance to address what the last year and a half has been like for you, but please take some more questions first. And thank you so much for bringing your history to life for us today.
My pleasure, and good of you to join. I will certainly see you as soon as we are allowed to travel. It all depends on Max. He has to send me the invitation.
Any other questions? Or perhaps Kansab, you could tell us how the last year or two has been.
It's been a bore. I mean, how much can you practice? And no one there. As an artist, you need to go and perform. You need an audience to thrive, and then just sitting at home day in and day out and playing for the walls, it can get a little boring after some time. But luckily, I teach a lot of students online, so that takes care of a lot of problems, both musically and financially. Otherwise, it could be a big drain. Yeah.
We must have other questions. Please raise your hand or just pop something in the chat. Or if okay, I will then jump in and ask. I'm interested the Rabab players back from Bulandshahr. Do you know what kind of music they were playing before? They were not playing. Were they playing raga ragini kind of music? Because if they're playing on Rabab, they wouldn't have been playing the full. I'm interested what. So this sort of transition from perhaps what you could folk music into Hindustani music.
Initially, they were all playing folk music, and they were playing martial music. Since they were in the cavalry, they used to hang their rababs around the neck, and they used to play just to boost up the morale of the army. They used to play those kind of music. And folk music, of course, I had learned one or two songs my uncle had taught me when I was going to Afghanistan. So, yes, but later on, when they started playing classical music also on Rabab, but they couldn't do justice to Indian classical music. No one can, I mean, now, because of the limitations of the Rabab.
Thank you. Okay, I would love to pick your brains more about that, but I will. There are others. Anne has another question, and I also saw another hand up. Please do put your hand up if you have a question. Otherwise, I will. Let's go to Anne again. Anne, please. I probably have to ask you to unmute again. I have to find your. Oh, here you are. I'm asking you to unmute.
Okay, here I am. Yeah, so I've heard this wonderful story when you were here about the banjo. And the World's Fair in Paris, is it right? So I mean, you know, understanding what shop that banjo came from is a story in and of itself. But I guess with the picture, it seems like the neck is fatter than what we would imagine a banjo to have. So I'm wondering about any other innovations to that instrument. For example, did they add any sympathetic strings or do anything to the bridge when they played it over time? Do you know what other innovations might have been made?
Original Kokop Fasad, when he thought that it was the original banjo, the original shape. The neck was not so broad. It was just like a banjo. It was a banjo. Just changed the strings and the shape of the frets. The bridge was the same and everything was the same. Later on, his Karamtullah Khansab's son, Ishtiyaq Khansab, he came up with this slightly broader because the shop where the banjos were available in those days, Dwarkin had closed down, and then the other people didn't know how to do it. So they just pop it, put on a thick, slightly broader neck to the banjo, and that's how the photograph you saw of Mukhtar playing that banjo. It was a modified version, not the original banjo which Papa Khansa brought.
Okay, so now we have 3 questions alive. So Mohit Srivastava is the first. I'm asking you to unmute.
Yeah, I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, so I just want to begin by saying what a pleasure it has been to listen to Ustad Sahab here talk about his wonderful Gharana. I just want to pick his brain about 2 things. One is that, what would be the distinctive features of Lucknow-Shahjahanpur-Gharana in terms of its rote playing? And secondly, because a lot of these recordings are so old and they're so precious, I was wondering what kind of changes rote playing itself in the Gharana has undergone over such a long period of its evolution. So, one of the records that we played was from, I think, 1912 here. So I was just wondering, the way Avartans are played now, the way Guts are played now, is there any, has there been some sort of evolution in the way the instrument and the Guts are approached in the Gharana today as opposed to, from what it was 150 years ago?
No, as far as I am concerned, I have not changed. And we are still playing the same way as it was being played earlier by my ancestors. Of course, there have been developments, certain things have come in with the change of time. Those things are there, but the compositions, they have not changed one single bit. And I don't want to change it also.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And now Dan Newman. Okay, you are unmuted.
IRFAN Khan Saab, thank you so much for doing this. It's a great honor for all of us. I have a very simple question. I actually asked it in the chat, but it was perhaps overlooked. I've known about the recording. I've seen the recording of Sakawat a long time ago, actually, on YouTube, I think it was. I'm wondering if you know what the circumstance of that film actually was. It wasn't a Government of India Films Division film, I don't believe.
No, it was not. It was recorded by Wadia Movie Tones. This was a film producer and a director called Homi Wadia, and they had this studio, Ranjit studio, where all this recording was done. Not only Sakawat Khan Saab's, he recorded a few others like Habib Khan Saab's Batta Been and Malka Pokhraj's, and then 1 or 2 Qawwals. There are a series of these recordings which are available. They were filmed on maybe 16 mm film in those. There was no video in those days in 34. No one knew about anything about video. It was either a 16 mm or a 8 mm.
I'm pretty sure it's at least 16 millimeter from 1936. Yes. I'm not even sure they had 8 millimeter yet then. But I'm wondering, was this shown in theaters then? What would have been the use, or was it just for private?
No, it was shown in the films also. For when they were showing this film division news reels in for 2 minutes. They used to have this news reel before the main film started.
Right.
So sometimes they played Sakawat Khan Saab's, sometimes Habib Khan Saab's Been, or sometimes, and various whoever they recorded in those days. And that's how it. But it was not meant for public to be sold commercially.
Right. Good.
And
Thank
the tabla player, incidentally, the tabla player who's playing with him, his name is Fayyaz Hussain. He was the main tabla player of Gohar Jan of Calcutta, and he was the uncle of Tirakwa Khan Saab.
Oh, oh, good. Thank you.
Welcome, pleasure. Thank you for being here. I've heard so much about you from Max and others. It's an honor to have you on the show.
Well, thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. Wonderful that you're here. Is there a reason why all the videos are turned off? Is that on purpose?
I know it'd be nice to, Kathleen, I can't do that. I don't know, Kathleen, if you can give people permission to put on their videos.
I'll mute myself again.
Yes, I think people can.
I don't think I can do it.
I know I changed it. Maybe people could. Maybe people are trying to hide themselves. But I have added start video to the permission.
Okay.
Okay.
So oh, here is Dan.
Oh, I see. That's.
Please, people.
Yeah.
I'm just going to ask various people as we go through. Okay, I'm multitasking. So we have a question from Anna Chakravarti. So I'm asking various people to start.
Right.
Hi, am I audible?
You're on.
Oh, hi. So Ustadji, wonderful presentation there. Thank you once again, both you and Max. I have two questions in one, actually. First off, was the bridge of Kokab Khan Sahib's banjo two-legged or three? Would you have any information on that?
No, two. You see, the third leg was not as deep as the other two legs. It was just two legs and a slight protrusion for the middle leg.
So was it just suspended then?
Yeah.
Because having three legs has an enormous impact on the sustain or lack thereof of the American banjo, which is why I'm asking you this question. Yeah. And secondly, this is a kind of, that this goes in tandem. How has the playing technique of the sarod evolved over the past 80 or so years? Do you welcome these changes? And I know that you in particular and your family have stuck to emulating as much as possible the old sound of the sarod, which relied on different metallurgy and a very different kind of string material. Your views, please. And especially about stroke craft.
It's a loaded question. I mean, the thing is that you have to first understand what, I mean, you want to know how we do the alap, and has it changed from what it was before? Or has there been any change in the gut?
Oh, okay. So I think let's break it up into two or three different parts. The first part of the question is, your family use not just the fingernails, but also a kind of prosthesis on the fingers of the left hand to produce a clear, sparkling tone, if I may, which is kind of, sharper than the usual sarod. And this is kind of a traditional way among the Pathan sarod players of playing the left hand portion of the sarod.
No, not all of us. Mm-hmm. It all started with Karamtullah Khan Sahib because during his old age, his nails had become very brittle. Mm-hmm. So he came up with the fish scales and turned them like a timber, and used to put them on those two fingers. As you know, we play sarod with 2 fingers, not 3 fingers. So you put it on the middle finger and the index finger. And his son, Ishtiaq Khan Sahib, also carried on with the tradition. And both his Ishtiaq Khan Sahab's son, Gulfam and Mukhtar, they used to do that. Apart from that, my father or my grandfather, they never did it. My brother also never plays with those things. Even I didn't initially, but when I went to Lucknow, and because I was practicing so much, my uncle used to make me practice from 5 o'clock in the morning to lunchtime. So my nails are getting worn off. So he told me, look, you start using those seasoning. Those days I used to make it from fish scale also. Later on, when Mukhtar came over once to Calcutta and he showed me how to make it from this cellulite.
Yeah.
So he had come up with the cellulite thing. Even Ishtiaq was using fish scales because cellulite was not readily available in those days, and to mold them, and it needed a little bit of doing. So, but now sometimes I use it, but most of the time for concerts I try not to use it because of the recording. It makes a lot of racket and then it doesn't sound so pleasant. But there are times when I have to do it and I have to control it. But for practice,
about,
I do.
About the position of the Java.
Sorry, Arnab, if you because we don't have much time, so I want to get to some other people who are waiting to ask questions.
Of course. Can I just quickly finish my point here and ask Ustad Ji the second logical extension of this question that I intended? That's about the position of the Java and the plectrum, vis-a-vis the bridge, and Ustad Ji's very clear, definite position as to what it ought to be and what exactly the sound profile should be that is generated by positioning the Java in a particular way. And I know that things have changed.
Yeah, the position of Java has changed over the years. Earlier, they were holding it like the rabab. They were holding it closer to the bridge. And now, with the passage of time, we have moved it slightly forward, but not too far. Unlike some players, we have stuck a sort of a middle ground, and we play the alap and gat and everything from the same position.
Thank you very much. We'll take it on forward from here.
We will carry it on when we meet next.
Thanks.
In detail.
So I see Atiya Khan has a question here. So I'd like you to, and you are one of Khan Saab's sisters. So I'm just unmuting you, please. You have to unmute yourself. You should, yeah.
Yes, I have. Hello. Actually, I wanted to ask Ustad, being the pioneers of such glorious gharana, and we have seen very eminent artists, from Niamatullah Khan Sahab down to IRFAN Muhammad Khan. I would like to know why this decline happened in the gharana and why artists were not given the recognition that they deserved.
There are a lot of reasons for it. The prime reason is we didn't change and we didn't pander to the changing tastes of the people. My forefathers, including me, we never played cheap dhuns or bhatyalis or things like that. They never did. But we didn't realize that times have changed and people want it. But what to do? It's too late for me to change, and I'm not going to change in any case. That was one reason. The second, and this other reason was all my ancestors, they taught the royalty, either the Nawab or the Raja or Zamidars, and those students didn't perform in public. Maybe some did later on when they fell on hard days. Unlike some other like Baba Alauddin Khan Sahab, he trained so many students, no matter whoever wanted to learn, he taught them, and he taught them extensively, and he trained very good, some of the finest musicians that we have seen in India. And the other reason being, we got caught up in this thing called employment. My uncle and my grandfather, they were employed in Bhatkhande Music College. And when the concerts came, they were not allowed to go. Were not given leave. So all the concerts slowly dried up. And when my father moved to Calcutta, he was in his own comfort zone. And most of the time, the Nawab Sahib would say, "Hey, why do you want to go? How much are they paying you? I'll pay you more than that. Just don't go." So after some time, people thought that, okay, maybe Khan Sahib doesn't want to play, so they stopped inviting. And I have been away from India for so long. I mean, for 20 years, I've been away from home. 6, 8 years in Kabul and 15 years in Assam. So the time when I was coming up, those days, those years, where I was not here. So that's one reason. But inshallah,
hopefully your students will take your legacy forward, inshallah.
Hopefully, yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And I actually we should be finishing, but I just wanted to ask, we have Alan Miner, we have this, who's written just the most superb book on sarod and sitar. Would you like to say anything or ask anything? I don't want to sort of, push you, but
I think Alan has known Khan Sahib for a very long time.
I know, but perhaps
Yeah. Oh, hello. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hello, Khan Sahib. What a joy to see you. Hello, Matt.
Hi, Alan.
Thank you for the invitation. Oh, gosh, I just want to say how much I've enjoyed this fantastic interview, Max. My goodness. One who started a time taking us through the lineage. Oh, my goodness. And Irfan Khan Sahib taking us through the inside story. You really did a fantastic job. And I hope to be live again soon in this country or somewhere else. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining, Alan. It's always a pleasure to see you.
It's been wonderful.
Well, I think we should be wrapping up. So, I mean, just a huge thank you to you both. This was simply wonderful. And I'm absolutely there with Anne Rasmussen on, well, I'd be very happy to work with you guys to get Khan Sahib over here in person. I think I'd like nothing better, concerts in America and and visits to American universities, because it's so rare to have somebody from this sort of background, this sort of lineage, who's so incredibly articulate, and this family of musicians who are so academic as well. So it's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. And please say hello to Amy. Forgot to wish her in the beginning because it was muted and didn't know whether I was on. If she's still there.
She's here. She's showing the picture of Nazir Ali Jaira's boy.
Oh, I've read that book.
So thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Kathleen, and thank you, Max, and thank you, Khan Sahib.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna, and thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Khan Sahib. This was a great opportunity. Really appreciate it.
Seeing it happen.
Seeing you soon, inshallah soon. Okay, bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Talk to you soon, Khan Sahib.
Yes, hopefully. Don't just vanish. Yes.